He never went to college, never wrote books, and never cared what anyone thought of him. Yet, Cornelius Vanderbilt became one of the wealthiest and most feared businessmen in American history. They called him the Commodore, a title he earned not by commanding naval fleets, but by conquering the world of commerce. This is the story of how a poor boy from Staten Island built an empire and changed America forever. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born in 1794 on Staten Island, New York, into a family with little money and even fewer prospects. His formal education was brief, ending when he was just 11 years old. While other boys were learning Latin and literature, Vanderbilt was learning a far more practical lesson on the bustling docks of New York Harbor: how money moved. He watched the boats, the cargo, the merchants, and the deals. He absorbed the rhythm of trade, the flow of capital, and the art of the negotiation. This was his real classroom. At the age of 16, with a fire in his belly and a vision in his mind, Vanderbilt made a bold move. He approached his mother and convinced her to lend him $100. It was a huge sum for their family, a massive risk. But she saw the determination in his eyes and agreed. With that loan, he bought his first boat, a small, two-masted vessel called a periauger. He started a ferry service, transporting people and cargo between Staten Island and the rapidly growing city of Manhattan. From the very first day, Vanderbilt's strategy was brutally simple and devastatingly effective. He worked harder than anyone else, often from dawn until well after dusk, personally manning his boat in all kinds of weather. He charged lower prices than his established competitors, attracting customers with the promise of a cheaper fare. He moved faster, understanding that time was money for his passengers. One by one, trip by trip, he began to steal customers away from the older, more complacent ferry operators. His core philosophy was forged in these early years: outwork everyone, undercut everyone, and win at all costs. This relentless drive would define his entire career. As the 19th century progressed, a technological revolution was changing the face of transportation: the steam engine. The age of sail was giving way to the age of steam, and steamships were beginning to dominate the waterways. Many old-school sailors and businessmen were hesitant, skeptical of this new, noisy, and expensive technology. They clung to their familiar sailboats, comfortable in their old ways. Not Vanderbilt. He saw the future with absolute clarity. While others hesitated, he adapted instantly. He sold his sailing vessels and poured all his capital into building and acquiring steamships. He launched new routes, expanded his network, and once again, lowered fares to levels his rivals couldn't match. This is where his reputation for ruthlessness truly began to take shape. Business, for Vanderbilt, was not a gentleman's game. It was war. He didn't just want to compete. He wanted to annihilate. If a competitor dared to lower their prices to match his, Vanderbilt would slash his own prices even further, even if it meant operating at a significant loss for months on end. He had deeper pockets and a stronger will to win. He knew that his rivals would eventually bleed out, unable to sustain the losses. He operated on a simple, brutal belief: the last man standing wins everything. And Vanderbilt was always determined to be the last man standing. By the 1840s, his strategy had paid off spectacularly. He had crushed or absorbed nearly all of his competitors, establishing a near monopoly on shipping along the East Coast. The name Vanderbilt became synonymous with steamship travel. He was the Commodore, the undisputed king of the water. But for a man like Vanderbilt, one kingdom was never enough. As he stood at the pinnacle of the shipping industry, his gaze was already shifting to the horizon, to the next great frontier of American commerce. And this time, it wasn't on the water, it was on land. The railroad was the new engine of progress, a web of iron and steel spreading rapidly across the vast American continent. These railroads were connecting cities, opening up new territories, and transforming the economy. But Vanderbilt saw something else. He saw chaos. Most railroad companies were horribly managed. They were plagued by corruption, loaded with debt, and run by executives who were more interested in lining their own pockets than building a sustainable business. Where others saw a mess, Vanderbilt saw the opportunity of a lifetime. In a move that stunned the business world, Vanderbilt began to systematically sell off his entire shipping empire. At the absolute peak of its value, he liquidated his assets, cashing out of the industry he had dominated for decades. He was now armed with a massive war chest of capital, and he had a new target in his sights: the railroads. He went all in. He started by buying up controlling stakes in small, struggling railroad lines, often at bargain prices. His first major target was the New York and Harlem Railroad. Then came the Hudson River Railroad, and then the New York Central. His method was consistent and ruthless. He would take control, fire the incompetent and corrupt managers, and install his own loyal, efficient team. He slashed unnecessary costs with a vengeance, streamlined operations, and improved service. His genius was in consolidation. He wasn't just buying individual lines. He was piecing them together to create a seamless, integrated network. He connected disparate tracks, standardized schedules, and created a single, powerful system that controlled the flow of goods and people into and out of New York City, the nation's financial heart. By controlling the tracks into New York, he controlled the gateway to America. Transportation was power, and Vanderbilt now wielded it on an unprecedented scale. But this power was built on the foundation of brutal tactics. He was a master manipulator of the stock market. He would drive down the stock price of a target company through rumors and aggressive trading, buy up shares on the cheap, and then, once he had control, consolidate and improve the business, sending the stock price soaring. He engaged in legendary corporate battles, like the Erie War, where he fought with other notorious tycoons like Jay Gould and Jim Fisk for control of the Erie Railroad. He would force his rivals into bankruptcy without a second thought, cornering markets and destroying anyone who stood in his way. He saw no moral ambiguity in his actions. To him, business was a battlefield, and mercy was a weakness you couldn't afford. By the time he reached his 70s, Cornelius Vanderbilt was the richest man in America, and arguably the world. His fortune was estimated at over $100 million, an almost incomprehensible sum in the 1870s. To put that in perspective, it was more money than was held in the U.S. Treasury at the time. Adjusted for inflation, his wealth would make him one of the richest human beings in all of history. His empire reshaped the geography of America. His railroads determined which cities would thrive and which would wither. His control over transportation influenced industries, markets, and the daily lives of millions. Yet, for a man of such immense wealth and power, Vanderbilt's personal life was surprisingly simple, almost Spartan. He lived in a relatively modest house in New York City and had little taste for the extravagant parties and lavish lifestyles of the new Gilded Age elite. For most of his life, he showed almost no interest in philanthropy. He didn't build libraries, museums, or concert halls. He believed that his wealth was earned through his own hard work and genius, and he owed nothing to society. His responsibility, as he saw it, was to his business and his family, and nothing more. It was only at the very end of his life, reportedly at the urging of his much younger second wife, that this ironclad belief began to soften. In one of his final acts, he made a stunning donation of $1 million to found a new university in Nashville, Tennessee. It was one of the largest single charitable gifts in American history up to that point. The institution would be named Vanderbilt University, forever linking his name with education and scholarship, a stark contrast to his own life. Cornelius Vanderbilt died in 1877 at the age of 82. He left behind a dynasty and an empire that would continue to shape America for generations. His story is a powerful lesson in ambition, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of power. He didn't invent the steamboat or the railroad, but he perfected the art of dominating them. He understood that in a rapidly changing world, the key to success was not just to adapt, but to anticipate the future and seize it with absolute conviction. He built the networks that moved a nation, and in doing so, proved that with enough speed, scale, and sheer, uncompromising ruthlessness, you could build an empire from nothing. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of history's most influential figures. Let me know in the comments which tycoon or innovator you'd like to see covered next. See you in the next video.